Hello and welcome to another episode of the Strettycast. There's quite a bit to get through with this podcast, so we're deciding to focus on one topic. Right now, if you're reading through your phone, reading through your favourite news sites, you'll start to see a flurry of news surrounding Manchester United and the ownership of the club. And this has been bubbling for weeks. We've been working on a story which we published on Monday about a New York investment fund that were showing interest in buying the club. It's believed that fund have the money. They believe they have the money to buy the club. Now, that's pretty much up in the air because we don't quite know how much the Glazers are asking for. But we're going to get onto this story that we published. We're also going to talk about stories that popped up this week from Bloomberg, The Independent, and a few others, The Times to mention as well. I'm very happy to be joined by Shaun Connolly. Shaun, my co-host as per usual. Bit of a different podcast than usual. We're not going to talk about performances because they've been shit. We're going to talk about the ownership, which has also been shit. How are you keeping?
I'm doing all right, my man. I'm doing all right. It's good to be here as always.
It's good to be here, but this topic is something since we started our friendship maybe 2 to 3 years ago. We've always kind of been back and forth about the way the club was being run, what we wanted as fans. And I think they've really just taken the complete piss out of us for 17 years now. They came in and they wanted to soak up our commercial value by totally stripping the club. And now it just seems that they just use the club to strip dividends out of annually. They're not interested in Manchester United on the pitch being a success. They are only interested in fleecing their own pockets. Now, do you think right now, from what you're seeing online, that there's a sense of a movement? I'm not saying one particular movement, but there's momentum.
I do. And I think that one of the largest attributing factors to this, I was speaking to someone about this earlier on. Throughout their time at the club, they've always been very reactionary. And generally speaking, we have a poor season. They react to that by using our own money, not theirs, obviously, by bringing in, I suppose, what they would deem as suitable acquisitions that can help propel the club back into a top four to generate more money. There was only 2 seasons, I believe, throughout their tenure and their time there that they didn't. And it was one season with Mourinho and another season with Solskjaer. Now, we've just come off the back of some of the worst football I've ever seen Manchester United play at the end of last season. As well as that, we've seen an exodus of a lot of senior first-team players. We've come into a transfer market in the summer with a new manager who I can only imagine was missold a rainbow and has not been backed in any way, shape or form. The club clearly is devoid of the type of player that we require. We're lacking in clear positions. And it's obvious to everyone. It's obvious to a 10-year-old. So to me, from a business perspective, it's blatantly obvious that there are flaws that need to be filled and they're not being filled. And that, to me, signals that maybe this is the foresight of a group of owners that are looking elsewhere and thinking that, well, this isn't our problem anymore. This is going to be this person's problem.
You only have to look at something that happened earlier on this summer, which I think was a big red light. Stuart Gardner from MUTV is kind of known as a regular to people that watch pre-season tours. In recent years, he's always popped up on with programs with the likes of Paddy Crerr, and he's a regular voice. Now, he wasn't sent on tour this summer, and a number of the MUTV team weren't sent on tour this summer because of apparent budget cuts. This seemed very, very small at the time, and people probably overlooked it. But if you're not sending a media team on tour, which you always do because of budget cuts, that suggests to me that the Glazers have been looking at every shortcut possible right now. And I'm not suggesting that that's a definite reason that to believe there's an exit plan in place. But I think that the word in America certainly is that the club is for sale. The word in America is certainly that the club is for sale. And you're starting to see that now with the reports. We had it on Monday about the New York investment fund. Now on Wednesday, you had the Independent come out and say there's multiple consortiums interested in the club. You have the Times, who spoke to a spokesperson belonging to Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who say he's interested in buying the club. There's momentum building because I believe the club is for sale.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, there's no smoke without fire, is there?
No, and another thing, sorry to interrupt, Shaun, is
yeah, go for it.
We've had these rumors in the past. We've had takeover claims in the past. We had the Red Knights who were interested, and nothing ever happened. So people listening might be asking, well, how is this going to be any different? Why should we believe it's going to be different? I don't know, because someone has to make a bid. The Glazers have to make a price. They're going to have to sit down and have that conversation. But the one thing that's very interesting is this story isn't being denied. In the past, claims like this, similar claims, were denied. It's not being denied this time. Maybe it will be tomorrow. We never know with the way this club is with news. But thus far, it has not been denied. And you're not just speaking about a small outlet like us, Stretty News, running the story, which could be easily brushed aside. You're now talking about The Independent. You're now talking about Bloomberg. You're now talking about Times. They're still not denying it.
No. And given that every major publication is now running with more or less a cousin or a sister of the same story, now is going to be the time when any sort of PR for the club is going to have to come out and make some sort of response, because continuing to ignore this, I mean, I suppose ignorance could be classed in any sort of way because you can interpret it whatever way you want. But given the classification of the way the stature of the club is right now, with the squad, with the lack of transfer activity, with the continuous ordeal off the field, culminating in Arnold obviously off down in the pub. I mean, it's bizarre. It's bizarre. I mean, you're talking about a group of people that are supposed to be good business people, and they're anything but good business people. Any sort of shrewd, half-tactile business person would realize that, you know what, if we give a little here, we can take more, you know? And they don't even have that about them.
The really sad thing as well, like, it's been well documented, the damages they've inflicted on Manchester United over the past 17 years. But what's really damaging too is we just hired a new manager. He's one of the most exciting up-and-coming managers in European football, who's in his early days of management has built a rather impressive CV, winning trophies, winning consecutive league titles, playing attractive football, and buying into this modern way of playing. We've took him from Ajax, planted him into the biggest job in football, and not backed him. Yeah, there's something very, very cruel about that. And it's time, definitely time, for them to go. And another thing as well, Shaun, there's more plans this weekend for protests at Old Trafford.
Mm-hmm.
The 1958, again, I think are doing a really good job in making sure that there's consistent protests taking place. What do you think about this? This is an important message, right? Especially this week when you've got all these big billionaires talking about having interest in Manchester United and investment funds and whatever, which may not be the best route for Manchester United because an investment fund only wants to make money out of the club. But these protests, they can send a message, can't they, to these owners that we are extremely unhappy with these owners. Come in and take us out of this misery.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is our football club, there. You know, it's not theirs. This is our football club. It's the people's football club, and the people's voice is what stands much taller than anyone else. We can make a real point. And ultimately, we can make a stance against this, and this can send the message to the current owner and prospective owners of the football club. It's absolutely necessary for this sort of stuff to occur. We saw what happened the last time, and obviously it ended up in the game being called off. But it's absolutely necessary, leading back and everything that we've just spoken about for the last 10 minutes. Like, our club isn't currently in a situation where it's bleeding or there's small issues that need to be fixed. Our club is broken. And make no mistake about that, the club is broken.
As a result of that, as a result of being broken, I think for a pretty long time, I think the fan base has been broken into segments. I think
It
if you
definitely
look at
has.
some of the fan groups, as a result of this ownership, we've got fan groups that can't see eye to eye on certain topics. Therefore, there's no dialogue between them. And I've kind of seen a bit on social media with some of these protests, some digs being thrown across by one fan group to another. I just think it's absolute bullshit. I'm not saying
Of
all
course
the
it is.
fan groups have done this or are guilty of this, but this is definitely a time where we need to be united, need to be together, need to be on the same page and put some differences aside, because the bigger picture is we want to see Manchester United without the Glazers. Now, I'm not saying that any new owner is going to be better, because we have to realize too that there's a lot of people out there that have the money to take over this club,
Yeah.
but there's not many people that will do that with that money, with their heart in the right place.
Oh yeah.
And that brings us on to the exclusive from the Times, which state that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is interested in buying
Yeah.
Manchester United. Now, it's going to take some time for this story to develop to find out how interested he is, how much money he's willing to depart, who else he has on board with him. But that one is promising in comparison to the investment funds, right, Shaun? Because this is someone that's from Manchester, is someone that is understood to be a Manchester United fan, although he wanted to buy Chelsea not long ago. What do you make of these Ratcliffe reports?
Oh well, I mean, on paper they read tremendously fruitful. We're talking about a guy that he's 69 years of age, I believe. I mean, he's Lancashire born. Like, he's the majority shareholder of a huge chemical or like group, Ineos, isn't it? I mean, he's reportedly a boyhood fan of the club.
Britain's richest man, he's down as.
Britain's richest man, like, and he also owns Nice. Like, he owns the Nice over in France.
He owns Nice and he owns a Swiss
A
Super
Swiss
League
club
club.
is right, yeah, yeah. And he also owns a cycling team. He owns the Ineos Grenadiers cycling team. And I know from my 9 to 5 that Ineos and cycling are like the equivalent of Manchester City in that sort of big, massive blank check sort of. And this is a guy who's passionate about developing what he has. But fundamentally, I mean, it's reported he's a Manchester United fan. It's not so long ago he'd a bid turned down for Chelsea, and I know that's all business, and business is business, you know. But he's reportedly a Manchester United fan. You would think he's got the club's best wishes at heart here. He's got more money than he's probably able to count. So it can't be a situation of coming on board and trying to make more money. It's ideally a guy who's coming on board with the right intentions for the football club and trying to fix the massive hemorrhaging that's after occurring over the last, 17 years.
Like I said at the start of the podcast, a lot of this stuff has been bubbling for some time. That Manchester United could be up for sale, that you have Sir Jim Ratcliffe interested. I think Manchester United fans on social media have been kind of issuing lots of pleas to Ratcliffe. And interestingly, a lot of the stuff has been pretty silent. But we do have it on record, and we published it tonight, which is Wednesday, that Ratcliffe had a meeting with a former Manchester United player in the past week or two. That player issued a plea to Ratcliffe to come and save Manchester United from the Glazer family. So a lot of stuff is happening. There's a lot of conversations being had. And like I said, the word in America is that the club is for sale. Shaun, just furthermore on this, as a Manchester United fan and someone that has been going to games before the Glazers took over in 2005, tell us what it's been like watching the club in the past 17 years, and the club that you grew up loving to the club that you see now, that prioritizes commercial growth over on-pitch success. This couldn't be further away from the club that you fell in love with as a kid.
Club I fell in love with as a kid. Like, I went to my first game, which was Palace in the middle of Ferguson's massive streak without a win, when the club was looking in turmoil, and the likes of Pete Molyneux was out with a rag saying "Tara Fergie," and as we progressed through it, like, cause it's funny, and it kind of hurts me as well talking about it, because it's 4 decades I've been going, and it would appear as I'm getting quite old. But as the time has progressed, we've seen the Glazers come in, and sort of in the twilight of Ferguson's time at the club, But Ferguson is an enigma in that he's the greatest manager of all time. And anybody who says otherwise doesn't know what they're talking about. The man was able to continue what it was he was doing in this massive mechanism of destruction of European football. But even at a time period when we were going for 4 league titles, we were going for, I believe, a 3rd Champions League final in a row. Like, things seemed as rosy as they could possibly seem. We were still protesting the Glazers then. Yeah. So there's a lot of delusion from fan bases outside of United that think, yeah, exactly. That think, oh, this is just something you're jumping on right now. But no, we've been jumping on this when we were winning Champions Leagues. I've seen this football club go in a route that I never thought was possible. I know that football happens in cycles, particularly in a very, very strong league like the Premier League, with all this team and all the money that's in these teams. So the expectation is that you're not going to have a perennial winner when you have so much competition. So the expectation would be that maybe you fall away from first, second, and you start getting into a battle for a top 4. But what has happened at the football club is far beyond anything that I could have ever imagined, because I always looked at it that the club is so big and so worldwide, and it's almost bigger than football, that it could never fall to that level. It could never fall to a position where we could be having this conversation right now. So to see it happen it's pained me. Like, as I said, look, the easiest way I can summarize it to you, I had my own seat, and it took me a long time in my own personal sort of stance to be able to get my own seat over in that stadium. And they killed it for me. They killed the joy. It's not that I don't go, because I do go, but out of a personal choice, I don't go as frequently as I used to, because I used to go, I'd see them nearly as much as I'd see my family. And I gave that up. And I gave it up. And I gave it up with the fact that I just despite them in my own little way, it was my own little dig toward them. But they've sucked the life out of my football club. And that's the easiest way I can describe it to you. They've sucked the life out of my football club. Now, it doesn't mean I'm not going to support them, because I'll continue to support them. And as I said to someone only a few hours ago, I kind of got a bit of slack on Twitter for saying that I felt sorry for my son's generation, the 16-year-old, that I feel sorry for his generation of United support, because all they have had is the Glazer generation. That's all they've had. And they're growing up in a time when their friends are supporting our greatest rivals and getting slack off them. People seem to miss the point that I was making on Twitter. It's not that they don't get to win the Premier League every year. It's the fact that all they have known is rot, is stagnation.
It's dysfunctional club.
A dysfunctional football club that doesn't have a clear philosophy. A dysfunctional football club that doesn't have a message that it can send out to smaller generations and younger generations that are going to grow into our fan base, that this is where we're headed, this is what we mean. There was a time period with Manchester United when a football player would look at the club and it would be, this is what I can offer this football club. But now a football player looks at Manchester United and they think, what can this football club offer me? And the greatest thing with that, and the greatest point you can make about that, is Paul Pogba being on over £300,000 a week and actually been offered an increase, despite the fact he's spending half his time sitting on his arse because he's injured, or at least he's feigning injury. And he gets an offer of an increase on wages that he shouldn't be on in the first place. But he feels like that's not enough. And this is the problem. And it's been created, and it's an ethos that has been cultivated at the very top. And it has just rotted the love of the football club.
I don't want to go back too much on Pogba. You just mentioned stuff that I wanted to bring up, is how that kind of epitomizes the problem with wages and so on. But Alex Ferguson did warn that his agent was a shitbag and they wouldn't give him the money that they wanted when he was a teenager. So he ended up going to Juventus. Now, they obviously bought him back, and they bought him back to break a record. Then he ends up going on a free. We will do a separate podcast at some point, maybe when the Glazers get up and leave, about some of the most kind of embarrassing episodes that we've witnessed the past 17 years. The Pogba deal is definitely one of them. That's why I kind of want to elaborate on it. But there's so many of them, so many hiccups. And
we had a great piano player at one stage, didn't we?
Fucking magnificent piano player. That's about all he did. But moving on, we have some questions that I want to get to from our listeners. And as well as that, make sure everyone subscribes to the newsletter. You can get it at stretty.substack.com. We send out about 3 to 4 of them a week. Sometimes exclusive news, interviews, and whatnot. So make sure you jump on that. But anyway, Shaun, first question for you kind of comes from what's being reported in the kind of transfer section of the news sites at the moment with Casemiro.
Right.
Are you
Casemiro.
excited by the prospect of landing him? Because when we spoke about Rabiot and you did a stunning article on him, you were excited about that deal. United are now pulling away because his wage demands are too much. But it looks like the alternative to Rabiot is Casemiro.
Well, I mean, if that is a deal that can be done in any way, shape, or form, which I highly doubt it is, then yes, I would be very excited about it. Like you're talking about a guy here that I say it time and time again. The greatest asset that you can have as a footballer is availability. This is a guy that played 48 times for Real Madrid last year. He played 48 times for a Real Madrid side that consists of Toni Kroos, Luka Modric. You've got that fantastic chap from Uruguay, Federico Valverde. You've got players coming in, the young lads that are coming through. You've got Eduardo Camavinga. You've got Aurelien Tchouameni. I think that's how you pronounce his surname. Tchouameni, isn't it? Tchouameni. You know what I'm talking about anyway.
I'd say Tchouameni, but I'm probably wrong.
But this is a guy like it's not like he's ancient. Okay, he's 30, so he's getting beyond the like probably what you could class as his prime. But then ultimately, these really smart midfield footballers, as they get older, they can sort of create a new stance on what they are. We saw what Scholesy. When Scholesy went from being an attack midfielder back to sitting further back. I think he's an absolute class act, and he's proven that year in, year out. It's funny we were talking about Pogba, because I think if you had a player like Casemiro sitting behind a Pogba, could have alleviated an awful lot of the issues that Pogba brought to the club. But this is a guy who's played for Brazil over 60 times, is a regular in a Real Madrid side that is absolutely stacked with Galacticos. And yeah, he's a tremendous footballer, and he's a defensive midfielder.
I think this, when I seen the Casemiro thing pop up, I honestly think that Ten Hag may be coming to the conclusion that if we're not going to get Frenkie de Jong, that this Manchester United team is probably at such an early stage of development in terms of what he wants, that it may be too soon to bring in that kind of passer to do that job. And maybe someone that is a defensive midfielder and has that kind of profile of player is what we actually need. This midfield is far too light, Shaun. And as much as much as I've been saying that the young sign is the one we want, the one the manager wants, and so on, I look at that midfield, even with Frenkie de Jong, I still have concerns. That's nothing against Frenkie de Jong, but I think we need a bit of steel. We really lack a bit of steel. Someone that can go into games, grab it by the scruff of the neck. And that's something Casemiro, I've seen him do it. He was a fantastic player in that Madrid side under Zinedine Zidane. I don't think he's really played at those heights since, but I've seen him. He's been absolutely fantastic for Madrid.
Do you know what's really interesting with Casemiro as well in our particular situation is the relationship that he has with Fred at the national level. Casemiro sits as that number 6 and Fred sits ahead of him. They have a fantastic relationship at international level.
Right. Okay. Well, I didn't think about that. I'm forgetting about poor Fred.
Mm-hmm. You see, Fred plays in that sort of 8, more like an advancing 8 in that Brazil side, and Casemiro does all the donkey's work behind them. But Casemiro and Fred regularly play the ball between each other. And I was looking at statistics recently, not because ultimately I hadn't even comprehended Casemiro coming to Manchester United, but it was just more so I was sitting down having a coffee and I was looking at it. The range of short passes that they have between each other that actually develops the play for Brazil is huge. So if Casemiro is someone that Manchester United can bring to the football club, which I seriously doubt he is, then he would be a tremendous signing.
Why do you doubt it? Just a matter of interest. Why do you doubt it?
Well, if I'm Casemiro, I'm thinking, why do I want to go there? Like, I'd imagine with the length of time he's been at Real Madrid, he's probably quite friendly with Ronaldo.
You mentioned Camavinga, who arrived at Real Madrid last year. He'll have another year behind him. They've just signed Tchouameni for big money. Mm-hmm. I know there'll come a time where they won't have Luka Modric and Toni Kroos, but surely Casemiro will be having a look at his options there, getting into the team this year, and think that the World Cup coming up, it might be time to move. Or maybe I'm just looking for reasons that he'd want to join us.
I think that might be it, because if you look at it with Luka Modric is 36 years old, and Toni Kroos is 32. So when you're looking at the likes of Camavinga and Tchouaméni coming in, I think they're more so looking at that. Now, look, I'm not the manager of Real Madrid, okay? So I don't know. Maybe they do have intentions, and maybe they're saying to him, it's time for you to move on. Because also as well, like, they do have Valverde, in fairness to what you're saying, and Valverde is very much of the mold of that sort of Casemiro type player. Look, if we can get him, fantastic, brilliant. I'm just a little bit skeptical about the possibility of that fella leaving the allure of Real Madrid to join this absolute ship.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question here. We're after getting a good one in from Twitter. How would Dale O'Donnell assess Richard Arnold so far? Is he any better than Mr. Woodward, or is it more of the same?
To answer how would I assess him so far, you'd have to say it's more of the same. You would have to say it's more of the same. And as well as that, to go back on the podcast we did after Richard Arnold showed up at the pub, this is exactly what I suggested would be the case. When you make an internal appointment like this, people were very, very quick to forget that Richard Arnold had worked alongside Ed Woodward on so many deals, so many things. Everything that Woodward worked on, Arnold was part of. He was part of his team. And we replaced Woodward, brought in Arnold, and people are now asking the question if it'll be any different or it'll be the same. It'll be the same. It'll be the same for as long as the Glazers are in charge. They would not hire someone that they did not deem fit for what they wanted and running at this club. Ed Woodward, in their eyes, they would have given him a lifetime contract if they could. They didn't want him to leave. He did a fantastic job in their eyes. But speak to any Manchester United fan and ask them for their opinion on Woodward, and it won't be a positive one. So this is the problem we've had, Shaun, is we all sit back and we give our opinions on Manchester United and what we do. And sometimes what we would do is the wrong thing to do as well. I'm not saying that we all know what's best. But what I'm saying is there's been so many basic things down the years that you would say, what were they thinking? But it's just a matter of they don't see things like us. All they want to do with Manchester United is make money. And if Richard Arnold's job is to make money for the Glazers, like Ed Woodward's job was. So will it be any different? No, I don't think so. Is that Richard Arnold giving off a different impression than Woodward? Yeah, he is. I think he's impressed quite a few people because he shows up to a few more events. He shakes a few more hands. He even buys you a fucking pint. You know, he's a sound chap. But really, is he doing good for Manchester United? I don't think anyone that the Glazers put in place to do one of their jobs is a good person for Manchester United. Quite frankly, the only people I'm willing to support, and it's been the case for some time, Shaun, is the manager and the players. Support all the players until they give me a reason not to. But there hasn't been a manager in the past 17 years, apart from David Moyes, really, that I didn't support. It hasn't been because you have to support your team. But these owners, they give you reasons to hate your football club, and that should never happen.
Well, what I'd say to you is, with that last line, I'll never hate the football club.
Yes,
I'll hate.
But they took that football club off. No, they didn't take the football club off the crest. That happened in 2001.
They didn't do that.
No, they didn't do that. But when that happened, that's when the football club showed signs of changing. Really,
it's almost something that we've just become accustomed to dealing with. You know, it's something. It's like I said earlier on. I never in my wildest dreams fathomed that I could be having this conversation with anybody about Manchester United. Like, even with yourself, because I have a few years on you. You basically grew up in a time period where when we finished third, it was a catastrophe. And it was one season, you know, and then we turn around and win 2 or 3 leagues in a row directly after that.
Just on that, and before we finish up and expectations, I just want to quickly ask you a question for myself. What your expectations are right now for the upcoming season? We're after losing the first 2 games of the season. What are your expectations? What thing's going to happen?
Okay. Are we taking this in a perspective that everything remains the way it is right now and the owners stay there?
Well, realistically, even if there's a change of owners, it's not going to change much this season, is it really?
No, but the only thing that may change, if there's a change of ownership, it might instill some sort of mentality within the players whereby something is going to get better
Okay.
here.
Well, okay, of
And
course. New owners make the place happier.
that's it. Like
Yeah.
it'll improve morale. You would think it would improve morale. I honestly, from what we
As
see,
things stand, so yeah,
as things stand in terms of what the options we have in the squad right now, while also assessing the fact that we have done nothing that we need to do in a transfer market realistically, we could be looking at a bottom half of the table finish. I mean, there's nothing to suggest anything otherwise from how poor we were in the opening 2 games, because there's no fight there. It's not, I don't even know what it is anymore. I mean, it's guys out on the field that I really don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing. There's no love in it. There's no passion. I genuinely believe going into any game, like if we're looking at Brighton and Brentford, with the very best respect to both football clubs and their fans, because they do have good fans, like in fairness to them, we should be playing them off the park. Especially a Brighton side that has just lost Yves Bissouma. You know, they've lost what was considered their linchpin in the whole. And they played us off the park with Adam Lallana inside in the centre of midfield. And I look at it that it's like one of those old adages that I think it's going to get worse before it gets any way better. And I don't even know what better would be this season. I can't see that with the current setup, the way it is with the players in the squad that we have available, we'll be lucky to hit 10th.
Yeah, I said it to someone the other day that this season right now, I don't think I ever had lesser expectations when it comes to supporting Manchester United. And you spoke about when I was growing up, the third place would have been seen as, you know, a disaster.
Yeah.
Like every season, it was I when it came to expectations, I fully expected Manchester United to win the league.
Yeah.
Fully, like I would expect, and I'm sure everyone else listening knows what I'm talking about. But now that just seems, the thought of that seems totally foreign to me. It's a million years away from ever thinking that we've the right to win the league before a ball is kicked. But just before we wrap up, and you mentioned, you know, interestingly about the morale of the ownership, I think that it has a massive bearing on what we're seeing. I mean, when you look at these performances we've seen this season, I'm getting to the stage where I find it hard to criticize these players, Shaun, even though it's really, really bad. I look at these players.
Why?
I look at these players. I look at the fans and how angry we are at false promises. Do you think those players have been felt or fed false promises? I know they have, by those owners, by this football club, that have promised the likes of Bruno Fernandes when they sign new contracts that we're going to be back competing with Man City and Liverpool. And people can point out and reply to this and say, Bruno Fernandes has been shit for the past 12 months. Okay, fair enough, he's been off the boil. But this sense of mediocrity breeds. When Bruno Fernandes came to Manchester United, he lifted us. And how many months did it take for that to cool off? About 12 months. In that time, we hardly strengthened the team. And these players are getting fed up of being blamed every week for poor performances. And I've also heard as well a number of them, not just Cristiano Ronaldo, who everyone's focusing on, have asked to leave in the past few months.
Well, let me put something else to you.
The club is an absolute mess. And I'm gotten to the stage, Shaun, gotten to the stage where I'm over analysing performances. I'm over giving out every week saying, why did Maguire do this? Why did De Gea do this? They do it every week. The confidence is low. They can't build that confidence because of the way the club is.
Yes, but with respect that they're valid points. But this is the same Bruno Fernandes who has made it his point on multiple occasions to go out of his way to applaud the support, be it home or away. So he might be frustrated with his workplace. He might be frustrated with his employer and a lack of promises being delivered. He still has 75, 80,000 people coming there to see him play, coming there, cheering him on, chanting him, spending their money.
Yeah.
Right? We're not as well off as these lads. you know, especially the likes of us that are traveling overseas to go and see them. We're not
No,
as
yeah,
well off.
no, I totally get your point.
But the point that I'm making is I understand what you're saying, but I don't think the players are free of blame, because the players can be annoyed and they can be missold promises, and that's perfectly fine. But the players still have a responsibility. They're still being paid.
Yeah, and as well as that, there's a number of players that I think that I wouldn't be protecting here. There's a number of players in the past year that have behaved appallingly and have met issues. But what I'm also saying with this point is, I think the larger picture, a lot of these players are on the same page as the fans, and a lot of these players that are on this same page are getting pelted by the fans when really we're on the same page. We're just fed up. Manchester
Marcus
United, the
Rashford.
football club. What does he look right now? People might say that doesn't look interested. He looks fed up. Fed up.
I think he's heartbroken, to be honest.
So are you?
Yeah.
We're on the same page. This is what I'm saying. There's a lot of these players that they are getting so much stick, and I don't think they all deserve it. I know they're not playing well. I know a lot of them are putting in bad performances. We lost the first 2 games of the season. But I'm saying Manchester United as a football club just looks fed up. It's a dead cat on a street.
It does, but and while I'm not contradicting myself and using Rashford as an example, Rashford has the ability to be able to change that. He can't change what's going on behind the scenes, but he can change the portions on a football field. And that's why I won't give them a pardon. Even though I can understand what you're saying, I won't give them a pardon on it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think I don't think any footballer should be given a pardon on shit performances. I'm just saying something, you're right. There's something, we need a lift. Need a big, big lift. Shaun, thanks so much for joining me on this podcast.
Pleasure,
we
man.
waffled on a little bit about the Glazers and that, and we don't really know exactly until that bid is made, until that bid is accepted, and then we can be a little bit happier depending on who it is. But right now, I think the message is that momentum is building. And if you're around Manchester on Saturday, whether you have a ticket or on Monday, whether you have a ticket or not, please make an effort to go to the peaceful protest before the game. If you're there, let's make a stand. Let's show the whole entire world what we want the Glazers out. And hopefully, like Sir Jim Ratcliffe, maybe with a few friends that he has at Manchester United, might get together and give us the change we want. Shaun, how can people follow you on social media and follow those brilliant threads of yours?
At Shaun Connolly 85, Shaun with an SHAUN.
Brilliant. You can follow Strettycast on Twitter and Stretty News. Subscribe to this podcast on Spotify and Acast. And we'll be back again before the Liverpool game. Thanks for listening.